Somewhere by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you that the Viking people are preparing for war, and in a roundabout modern way, they're even putting out lists telling their people what to stock. It's not even really the point of the video, but I feel like if you were to add the 5 or 6 things I'm going to put on my desk to the 20 or 30 things that they have in their lists, you have a pretty good setup. Okay, so we have a video not about Bitcoin in any way, really, but Bitcoin did hit a record. It pushed above 100K and then it went to 107K, and we're going to ignore the fact that it's fallen back to 95K because people look past that. The 100K, that's the part that gets you going. And we see it in the comments. Gold is a relic. Bitcoin, well, it's easier to transport, it's easier to use, and the price only goes up all the way to the moon. That makes it better than gold. Well, if you were to list out gold's benefits, I don't really know how high on the list those things would be. Now, personally, I see Bitcoin more as something to hold, something to speculate on, and less as something to transport and use in transactions. And that isn't real far from how I see gold, except that where Bitcoin is speculative to me, gold is savings. Gold's a good alternative to cash in the bank, and I don't know about you, but I've just never stacked it in order to turn around and easily buy goods or services. I'm not using it to buy bread. Now, if we took a quick look at Bitcoin, I just don't think of it as something that I would intend to use transactionally either. But just for context, I do have Bitcoin, and I've actually done really well with it. I've done really poorly with other things like DeFi. You win some, you lose some, but anything I say about it is not really out of contempt. I'm just being practical here. And it seems strange to me to compare Bitcoin to gold in terms of their ability to do something that nobody really intends to do with them. But who cares? Let's have some fun with this and prove the case of portability for gold. We know Bitcoin can be transported. It doesn't weigh anything. And we know it can be transferred and used as a payment, where it's accepted. People just aren't using it that way. They're buying it for speculation. They want that free internet money. They want the gains, not an alternative way to buy a coffee. Now, gold, it can be transported too. It's extremely valuable. So even the smallest units are valuable, and you can use gold where it's accepted as well. It's more or less gold back's whole job. Just like Bitcoin, they aren't accepted everywhere. They're just a really good example of use where they are. Now, fractional gold would be another. These 10th ounce coins in the Summit Metals wallet or the quarters, they might be something that you could take to a farmer's market if you wanted. You could find people willing to trade for them. And the lower cost on fractional coins, it just gives you more flexibility. Now, silver would work too. Same thing, smaller value per unit. So technically, you can buy things with metals with a fair amount of flexibility if that's what you're after. Now let's get real here for a minute. We can carry as much of this as we want, but it's an alternative savings model. It's not pocket change. And sure, you can store as much Bitcoin as you want. Again, it's air. It doesn't weigh anything. Gold is maybe a little bit harder, but there are reasons to stock it. And if you're looking to do that, by the way, hit up Summit Metals. Hoarders are always welcome. Anyone questioning the portability of gold, though, well, hey, here's a small Pelican case. It's full of gold and silver. It's stashed in a standard Eberly stock bando bag. What's a bando bag? Well, it's just a product name. It's probably a cooler way of saying fanny pack, but you can wear it as a sling if you're not cool enough to pull off a fanny pack. But there's nothing keeping gold from being portable. This smaller pack will easily hold more than $100,000 in metals. And if that doesn't impress you, well, I have a larger kit here that would hold double that. I think the smaller Pelican is an M40, and this larger one is a 1060. And the bags, they're just small Eberly stock packs, and it's probably too late to get any Christmas shopping in yet, but if shopping for yourself, I'll get some links in the description. So quick note here, I don't make it a point to carry around fanny packs full of gold. Personally, do I need to make that point? Probably. But like I said earlier, it's just an alternative savings. So when people say be your own bank, this is what they mean. No counterparty risk, no risk of a bank failing or closing, or even just being closed for the day or having some strange withdrawal limits that don't let you get your money out when you want it. Well, none of that applies if your money isn't in the bank in the first place. And this is just showing that you can physically store it, that you can physically move it around without much effort. But that doesn't mean I'm suggesting you take it to Disney World or you take it out on a walk with your dog. Now, before we get back to the point here, Pelican cases, they tend to signal there's probably something valuable inside. And Everly stock bags, well, they might even signal that there's a high likelihood the person carrying them also has a firearm. So just a heads up, if you aren't familiar with those brands, there are probably would-be bad guys out there who will be. So not trying to spoil the fun here, just pointing out something we might not all be aware of. Now, to the point, gold is up 29% year to date. Fantastic performance given what it does. Bitcoin beat it. Yeah, sure. It's up 120% year to date. No argument there. Fantastic performance for Bitcoin. But to be completely fair, it's a totally different ride. Totally different level of risk. And like I said, I hold some Bitcoin and it does not feel the same as holding gold. I think it's a bad comparison. I think we should stop doing it. Now, in the last few months, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark all released information detailing supply citizens should stock in preparation for a possible war or other emergency. Now, I'm going to tell you how that plays in. War or not, I think everybody should work to be more self-sufficient, and I would say the kinds of things that show up in these pamphlets make really good sense. Except for cabbage, that shows up in one of them, and cabbage, I guess, wouldn't make my personal list. But each country is basically telling its people how to survive off-grid for 1 week and what to stock for a potential larger conflict. The goal being trying to get its citizens to plan for themselves to be more self-sufficient. Now, just for context, both Sweden and Finland joined NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's where this is coming from, if it seems like it's completely out of left field. But the idea of self-sufficiency is always interesting to me, and I've been meaning to mention this for a while. The pamphlets have all of the things that you would expect: food, water, heat, power, and payments. They go so far as to recommend keeping cash at home in varied amounts. That's in case of digital attacks, human error, system faults, or power failure, resulting in payment systems malfunctioning. Now, if you think Bitcoin would fare well in a power failure or digital attack, well, keep everything in Bitcoin. But personally, if I'm stocking something up for a possible emergency use, I need to be able to use it in an emergency. So different horses for different courses. Maybe gold is another alternative payment option for a crazy event. I don't know, but personally, I think of it more as an alternative for some kind of longer lasting issue. Just something to consider. Now, I like the information the Swedes and the Finns put out, but since they forgot to ask for outside recommendations, let's add a few things. First of all, fanny packs. Come on, I think Swedes, you're known for fanny packs. That seems like an obvious miss, but let's add a deck of cards so you don't get bored, a pocket knife as a tool, pen, notebook, flask of bourbon, and why not a little bit of gold? You guys were Vikings once. I feel like you should have already known this. Anyway, we went off the path on this one, or at least I did, but I thought it was time again to mention that gold isn't an asset you only hoard in your basement while you're preparing for some kind of apocalypse or war. It isn't that cool or dramatic, and I didn't even see it listed in any of those pamphlets I mentioned telling people what to stock to be self-sufficient. That is, coincidentally, though, exactly what I think it is. I think it's a way to build some self-sufficiency. So let's call it good there. And you can let us know what you think about having some gold for savings, having some gold for emergencies, and whether or not you rock a fanny pack for your service weapon, of course. Let us know. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, well, happy holidays. I always appreciate you watching. Take care.